Before we dive into the story, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. And if you enjoy this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Have a wonderful day, and now, enjoy the story. Emma Rosewood tugged at her thrift store dress for the 100th time as she stepped into the dazzling crystal ballroom of the Glamorous Hotel. Under the dim light of her apartment, the champagne-colored fabric had looked elegant, but here, surrounded by glittering designer gowns and flawless tuxedos, she felt like a dandelion in a field of roses. Her best friend, Chloe, had begged her to come as her +1, then promptly disappeared the moment they arrived, chasing after the wedding photographer. Emma was left standing alone, feeling more out of place with each passing second. The ballroom sparkled beneath 1,000 fairy lights. Shadows danced across the marble floors, tables were draped in ivory silk and towering centerpieces of orchids, and pearls made the room look like something out of a dream. Emma clutched her small purse tighter, whispering to herself as she found her seat. Table 10. Of course, hidden away in the back corner behind an enormous floral display. It was clearly the table for overflow guests, the ones nobody really knew. She sat quietly, pretending to be absorbed in her salad, while the others at her table buzzed with talk of yachts, vacations, and country clubs. At the head table, the bride and groom glowed like they had stepped right out of a fairy tale. "Is this seat taken?" The voice was deep, smooth, and startlingly close. Emma looked up and her breath caught. Standing beside her was possibly the most handsome man she had ever seen. Tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in a black tuxedo that looked made for him. His dark hair was perfectly, carelessly styled, and his striking green eyes seemed to hold secrets she couldn't name. "No, please," Emma stammered, gesturing to the empty chair. With effortless grace, he sat down. A hint of expensive cologne lingered between them, mixing with something warm and unmistakably masculine. "Sebastian Blackwood," he said, extending his hand. "And you are Emma Rosewood," she replied, slipping her hand into his. A spark shot up her arm at the contact. So unexpected, she almost pulled away. She forced a smile instead. "I'm here with my friend Chloe, though. She seems to have vanished." Sebastian's smile was warm, unpracticed, nothing like the polished grins she had seen all night. Ah, the classic wedding abandonment. I sympathize. I'm the best man, but I had to sneak away from my duties for a moment. The bride's grandmother keeps trying to set me up with her granddaughter. Emma laughed, the sound surprising even herself. "That sounds terrifying." "You have no idea," Sebastian said with mock seriousness. "She cornered me during cocktails and started showing me baby photos." His eyes crinkled with humor, and Emma felt her nerves begin to melt. "So, Emma Rosewood," he continued, raising his glass, "what brings you to this circus besides a missing friend?" "Chloe works with the bride. I'm just the +1 who doesn't know anyone." "Well," he said with a small, almost conspiratorial smile, "you know me." Now he lifted his champagne glass higher, to new friendships and surviving wedding receptions. Emma tapped her glass gently against his. "To surviving," she echoed, surprised by how natural it felt to say. The hours slipped by. Emma found herself lost in conversation with him, forgetting the glittering crowd and the intimidating ballroom. Sebastian wasn't just handsome, he was attentive. His questions felt genuine, his interest real. When she mentioned her work as a florist, his expression lit up. "You create beauty for a living," he said softly. "That must be incredible." Emma blinked, caught off guard by the sincerity in his tone. "It is," she admitted. Most people think it's just arranging flowers, but there's so much more colors, meanings, the emotions people want to express without words. Sebastian leaned in slightly, his gaze steady. Tell me more, and she did. For the first time in months, Emma opened up about her passion, her favorite blooms, the challenges of creating the perfect arrangement, her dream of one day owning a little flower shop of her own. Sebastian shared stories too, though she noticed he was careful, vague about his own work, something about consulting, helping businesses grow. But she didn't press him. She was too busy soaking in the rare feeling of being seen, truly seen by someone who listened. The band shifted into a slower rhythm, the kind of music that wrapped around the room like velvet. Couples glided onto the dance floor, hands entwined, faces lit with quiet joy. Emma watched them, her chest tightening with a bittersweet ache. She had never been much of a dancer, but here, seated beside Sebastian, she felt something she hadn't in years, like she belonged. As if hearing her unspoken thought, Sebastian leaned closer. Would you like to dance? Emma's breath caught. I should warn you, I'm not very good at this. A playful smile tugged at his lips. Lucky for you, I am. He stood, extending his hand with effortless charm. Trust me. Every instinct told her to decline, to stay safe in her corner. But something in his gaze, steady, sure, and strangely gentle, pulled her to her feet. She placed her hand in his, and the moment he guided her into his arms, the ballroom seemed to fade away. His hand rested against the small of her back, firm yet protective. He moved with an easy confidence, and before long she forgot her nerves. She wasn't tripping over her own feet. She was floating. You're full of surprises, Emma Rosewood, Sebastian murmured, his breath brushing her ear like a secret. She tilted her face up, her eyes locking on his. So are you, Sebastian Blackwood. And in that exchange, the air shifted. Something unspoken pulsed between them. Curiosity, attraction, danger even. When the song ended, Emma became aware of whispers. Guests were watching them. Some women leaned toward each other, eyes flicking toward Sebastian with unmistakable recognition, admiration, respect, maybe even envy. A ripple of unease stirred inside her. Who exactly was this man? As they returned to their table, she couldn't hold back any longer. Sebastian, what do you really do for work? He paused, still holding her hand, thumb brushing lightly across her knuckles. It's complicated. Try me, she said softly. Sebastian glanced around the ballroom, as though weighing his answer carefully. Then his voice lowered, calm and measured. I run a few companies. Technology, mostly. Nothing too exciting. But Emma heard what he wasn't saying. The way his words were polished, neutral, practiced. She saw the gleam of his watch, clearly custom. The staff's subtle deference toward him. The quiet power in his presence that no ordinary consultant carried. Her voice, barely above a whisper, she asked the question that had been building all night. Are you someone famous? Sebastian's smile faded, replaced by something far more serious. He held her gaze, the air between them tightening. Would it matter if I were? The question hung heavy, a challenge, a test. Emma swallowed, her pulse racing. She looked at him, really looked hand for the first time, saw not just the charm or mystery, but a flicker of something deeper. A vulnerability carefully hidden beneath the wealth and confidence. I don't know, she admitted quietly. And she meant it. I guess it depends on the kind of famous, Sebastian said. The The kind that makes people treat you differently. The kind that makes real connections nearly impossible. By the end of the evening, Emma didn't want to leave. The night had been unexpectedly magical, and Sebastian had made her feel seen, appreciated, interesting. For once, she hadn't felt invisible. "I should probably find Chloe," Emma said reluctantly as the last dance ended. "Of course," Sebastian replied, though he made no move to step away. Instead, he looked at her with quiet intensity. "Emma, I'd like to see you again. Outside of all this." He gestured to the elegant ballroom. Her heart skipped. "I'd like that too." He pulled out his phone. "May I have your number?" As she typed it in, she noticed the sleek, expensive model in his hand. Everything about Sebastian radiated wealth and sophistication, while everything about her felt plain and ordinary. And yet, the way he looked at her made her feel extraordinary. "I'll call you tomorrow," he promised, his fingers brushing hers as he returned her phone. "Tomorrow," Emma repeated, her pulse quickening as she walked away to find Chloe. Emma felt Sebastian's gaze linger on her. She turned once and saw him still standing by their table, watching her with an unreadable expression. And in that moment, she knew whatever secrets Sebastian Blackwood carried, she was already in too deep to walk away. The night had begun with her feeling invisible, tucked into a forgotten corner of the wedding reception. But as she left the Grand Belmore Hotel, she felt like the heroine of her own fairy tale. And Sebastian Blackwood, he might just be her Prince Charming. Only something told her that real-life fairy tales were far more complicated than they seemed. The next morning, Emma woke with butterflies in her stomach and Sebastian's business card on her nightstand. She'd barely slept, replaying every word, every glance, every touch. Sunlight poured through her tiny apartment window, brighter than usual, as if the world itself had shifted overnight. At exactly 10 o'clock, her phone buzzed. "Good morning, Emma. I hope you slept better than I did." Sebastian's warm voice filled the line, carrying a smile she could hear. "I'm not sure I slept at all," Emma admitted, curling up in her favorite armchair. "Last night feels like a dream." "Then let me prove it was real," Sebastian said. "Have lunch with me today." Her heart raced. "I'd love to, but I have to work. Saturday's our busiest day at the flower shop." "What time do you finish?" "Around 6. "Perfect. I'll pick you up at 7. Dress casually." After they hung up, Emma spent the day arranging bouquets, though her hands worked on autopilot, while her mind wandered to green eyes and mysterious smiles. "You're glowing," her co-worker, Lily, teased, watching Emma hum while piecing together an elaborate wedding arrangement. Emma tried to hide her smile, but failed. "Someone I met last night," she admitted softly. "Someone incredible." At exactly 7, a sleek black car pulled up in front of Rosewood Flowers. Emma quickly locked up, smoothing the skirt of her simple sundress and praying she looked appropriate for whatever Sebastian had in mind. But when she approached the car, it wasn't Sebastian behind the wheel. "Miss Rosewood, I'm Thomas, Mr. Blackwood's driver. He's waiting for you." Emma froze for a heartbeat. "Driver?" Then she climbed into the back seat. Sebastian was there, smiling warmly. Tonight he wore dark jeans and a casual button-down, but somehow even his relaxed clothes carried an air of refinement. The car's interior gleamed with soft leather and polished chrome, a quiet luxury Emma had only ever seen in magazines. "You have a driver?" she asked, sliding in beside him. "I do," Sebastian replied easily. "Is that a problem?" She tilted her head, studying him. "I'm just trying to figure out who you really are. He reached for her hand, his touch steady and reassuring. I'm the same person who sat at table 7 with you last night. Everything else is just details. Thomas drove them into a part of the city Emma rarely visited, where glass skyscrapers pierced the sky and everything gleamed of wealth and power. They pulled up in front of a tower that seemed to stretch endlessly upward, the sunset blazing across its mirrored surface. This is where I live, Sebastian said as they rode the private elevator to the top floor. When the doors opened, Emma stepped into a penthouse straight out of a dream. Floor-to-ceiling windows revealed the entire city, spread beneath them in a breathtaking panorama of glittering lights. Sebastian, she whispered, awe in her voice. What exactly do you do? He poured 2 glasses of wine, handing one to her with a half smile. I told you I run a few companies. A few companies, Emma repeated, raising a brow. In this building? Actually, he hesitated. I own this building, and several others. The truth hit her like a tidal wave. Emma set down her wine glass, her hand trembling. You own buildings, plural. Sebastian ran a hand through his hair, looking vulnerable despite the opulence around them. Emma, I should have been upfront. My full name is Sebastian Blackwood. Blackwood Technologies, Blackwood Industries, Blackwood Real Estate. I've been fortunate in business. Fortunate, she echoed, staring at him in disbelief. You're not just wealthy. You're one of those billionaires people read about in magazines. The number isn't important, Sebastian said softly. His gaze held hers with quiet intensity. What matters is that I've never met anyone who made me want to be just Sebastian. Not the CEO, not the heir, not the billionaire, just me. Emma walked to the window, staring out at the glittering city skyline far below. So that's why everyone stared at you last night. Why the waiters treated you like royalty. Yes, and you didn't think to mention that. I've learned that money changes the way people see me, Sebastian murmured, stepping close enough that she felt the warmth of him at her back. I wanted you to know me first. Emma turned, her heart in turmoil. Sebastian, I'm a florist. I live in a studio apartment above a coffee shop. I buy my clothes at thrift stores. We live in different worlds, do we? His green eyes searched hers, intense and unflinching. Because, last night, sitting at that table with you, I felt more at home than I have in years. Before Emma could respond, the elevator chimed. A woman stepped gracefully into the penthouse. She was stunning, her auburn hair glossy, her designer clothes impeccable, beauty effortless in the way that came with privilege and polish. Sebastian, you missed dinner with the Harringtons, she said briskly. Then she noticed Emma. Her tone shifted. Oh, I didn't realize you had company. Sebastian straightened. Victoria, this is Emma Rosewood. Emma, my sister Victoria. Emma blinked. Your sister. Victoria's smile was polite but sharp, her eyes assessing. You've heard of me, should I have? Emma asked uncertainly. Victoria's expression softened, just a touch. Sebastian hasn't stopped talking about you since last night, which, trust me, is unprecedented. My brother usually keeps his private life very private. Victoria, Sebastian warned, his voice low. What? It's true. Victoria turned back to Emma. He cancelled 3 important meetings today because he couldn't concentrate. Mother is beside herself. Heat rose to Emma's cheeks. She felt like an intruder. Maybe I should go. No. Sebastian's hand shot out, warm and firm over hers. His voice softened, almost pleading. Stay, please. The look in his eyes rooted Emma in place. For the first time, she wondered if walking away would be the easiest choice, but the wrong one. "Don't let this scare you away," Sebastian said, his voice steady but his eyes betraying a quiet fear. "Yes, I have money. Yes, my life is complicated. But what I feel for you, it's real." Emma glanced between Sebastian and Victoria, the weight of their world pressing down on her. "I need time to think," she whispered. "Of course." Sebastian nodded, though disappointment flickered in his eyes. "Thomas will drive you home." The choice during the quiet ride back to her apartment, Emma's thoughts tangled in knots. Sebastian Blackwood wasn't just wealthy, he was powerful, one of the most influential men in the city. She'd seen his face in glossy magazines, always dressed to perfection, always surrounded by glamorous, sophisticated people, people who belonged in his world. And yet, she also remembered the way he had leaned in when she spoke about flowers, listening as if her words mattered more than anyone else's. The softness in his voice when he asked about her dreams, the way he had held her during their dance, as if she were fragile and precious. The moment he admitted that fame and fortune had left him lonely, her phone buzzed. A message from Sebastian. "I know this is overwhelming. Take all the time you need. Just, please, don't disappear." Emma stared at the text, her heart pounding. Finally, she replied, "I won't disappear, but I need to understand what this means." 3 days later, 3 days passed before Emma called him back. 3 days of late nights scrolling through article after article, photographs of Sebastian at charity galas, business summits, luxury events, always polished, always poised, always untouchable, and 3 days of wondering if she was out of her mind to even consider stepping into his world. When Sebastian answered, his voice was immediate, urgent. "Emma, want to see you again?" She asked softly. "Anything," he said without hesitation. "I want to know who you really are, not the public version, not the careful answers, the real Sebastian Blackwood." There was a pause, then his answer came low and sure. "Then let me show you. Come away with me this weekend. No press, no obligations, no interruptions, just us." The weekend that changed everything this time. Sebastian picked her up himself. No driver, no sleek luxury car, just a modest sedan. He wore jeans and a plain t-shirt, and for the first time since the wedding, he looked like just a man, no fortune, no titles, no empire. They drove 2 hours north, winding through pine forests until they reached a secluded cabin by a glittering lake. Rustic and quiet, its charm was in its simplicity. "I bought this place when I needed somewhere to think," Sebastian explained as he carried her bag inside. No internet, no cell service, no connection to the outside world. Emma stood on the porch, breathing in the crisp air. For the first time since meeting him, she felt the noise of the world fall away. And as the weekend unfolded, hour by hour, it began to feel less like an escape, and more like the beginning of something real. They cooked simple meals together, laughing over Sebastian's disastrous attempts at chopping vegetables. Hopeless in the kitchen, he admitted, grinning as he nearly burned the toast. "But I'll try for you." They hiked forest trails, the crisp air filling their lungs, and Sebastian opened pieces of himself she'd never expected. Stories of childhood summers, of the pressure to uphold the Blackwood legacy, of the loneliness that came with too much success too soon. "I never wanted the spotlight," he confessed as they sat on the old dock, feet dangling above the water. watching the sun melt into the lake. I loved technology because I liked solving problems. But then it grew into something much bigger than I ever imagined. Do you regret it? Emma asked, curling against his side. I regret how isolated. It made me, he said quietly. I regret that I stopped trusting people, that I questioned every friendship and relationship. But not this one. He turned toward her, his hand warm against her cheek, eyes steady. With you, I remember what it feels like to be human instead of a brand. That night, under a blanket of stars, Emma realized she was falling in love with Sebastian Blackwood, not the billionaire, not the mogul, but the man who was afraid of thunder, who sang off-key while making coffee, who looked at her as though she held every answer he had been searching for. When they returned to the city, Emma knew there was no going back. She loved him completely, irrevocably, but loving Sebastian meant stepping into his world, a world that felt as intimidating as stepping onto another planet. The first test came sooner than she expected. I have a charity gala this Friday, Sebastian said one evening over dinner in a quiet restaurant, far from prying eyes. It's for childhood literacy, something very close to me. I'd like you to come with me. Emma's fork froze halfway to her mouth. A gala with photographers, with society people, and with me. With me, Sebastian corrected firmly, his voice gentle but unwavering. Just focus on that part. I don't have anything to wear to a gala. I don't know how to act at those things. I'll embarrass you. Sebastian reached across the table and enclosed her hand in his. His gaze locked on hers, steady and... Sure, Emma. Look at me. You could never embarrass me. But if you're not ready, I'll understand. Emma thought of the cabin, of the man who held her while she confessed her fears, who had promised to stand beside her no matter what. She exhaled slowly, her pulse racing. Okay, she said finally. But you might have to hold my hand the entire time. His lips curved in a smile that reached his eyes. I was planning on it anyway. The night of the gala, Emma barely recognized the woman staring back at her in the mirror. Sebastian had insisted on sending a stylist, who arrived with 3 gowns that looked like they belonged on red carpets, rather than in her tiny apartment. In the end, Emma chose a midnight blue, dress elegant, understated, and somehow her. When Sebastian arrived to pick her up, his eyes softened, lingering on her as if the rest of the world had disappeared. You're breathtaking, he said, his voice low, offering his arm. The gala was held at the Metropolitan Museum, its marble halls glowing with chandeliers and filled with the city's most powerful figures. Emma felt every eye on them as they entered, whispers rippling in their wake. She recognized faces from glossy magazines, politicians, CEOs, socialites. People who seemed to live in another stratosphere entirely. Just breathe. Sebastian murmured at her ear as flashes from cameras lit the room. You belong here because you're with me. And throughout the evening, he made sure of it. Sebastian never left her side, introducing her to colleagues and dignitaries with genuine pride. He never apologized for her, never tried to dress up her story. When people asked about her work, he listened as intently as he did when others spoke. Of multi-million-dollar ventures. You're different with her, Victoria observed later, catching Sebastian by the bar, while Emma was across the room, charming a group of elderly donors with her stories about the language of flowers. Different how? Sebastian asked, his gaze fixed on Emma's glowing smile, happy, relaxed, like yourself, instead of the Sebastian Blackwood everyone expects. Sebastian's throat tightened as Emma laughed at something one of the donors said, her warmth lighting the entire room. She makes me remember who I wanted to be before I became who I thought I had to be. Victoria's smile softened, though her words were pointed. Good for you, but are you good for her? The question followed him for the rest of the evening, an ache beneath the sparkle of chandeliers, meeting Emma's world the following week. Sebastian insisted on seeing her world. On a bustling Saturday morning, Emma led him into Rosewood Flowers, the little shop that had been her safe haven. Lily, her closest friend and co-worker, greeted him with a mischievous grin. So you're the mysterious man who's had our Emma floating around like she's walking on clouds. Sebastian chuckled good-naturedly, but instead of brushing it off, he rolled up his sleeves. To Emma's surprise, he spent the day helping awkwardly at first, then with surprising ease. His large hands were gentle with the delicate stems as he followed Emma's instructions. She watched, her heart swelling as he joked with her co-workers, complimented the elderly regulars on their flower choices, and crouched down to listen seriously. As a little girl explained why pink roses were the only proper gift for her grandmother. And in that moment, Emma realized something she hadn't dared to hope. Sebastian wasn't just stepping into her world. He wanted to be part of it. You're full of surprises, Emma said as they closed up the shop, her eyes warm with amusement. I like your life, Sebastian admitted. It's real in a way mine rarely is. That evening, Emma took him to her favorite pizza placer, tiny hole-in-the-wall joint where the owner knew everyone's order by heart. Sebastian devoured greasy slices, laughing when the cheese stretched comically, and played old arcade games with the delight of someone rediscovering childhood. This, Emma teased as they walked home, their fingers intertwined. This is who you really are. No, Sebastian corrected softly. This is who I am with you. You bring out the best parts of me. The obstacles, not everyone was supportive of their relationship. After a tense board meeting, Sebastian's longtime business partner, Richard, cornered him. Sebastian, I need to talk to you about the florist. Name is Emma, Sebastian said flatly. Fine, Emma. The press has already picked up photos of you two together. There's speculation about your relationship. This could affect your image. Sebastian's jaw tightened. My personal life is not up for discussion. Everything about you affects the company, Richard countered. What happens when this runs its course? What happens to your reputation when it ends? It's not going to end. Richard arched a brow. You've known her for a month. I've known her long enough to see she's the most genuine person I've ever met. Long enough to know, Sebastian paused, his voice steady, that I'm in love with her. Richard scoffed. Love? Sebastian, be practical. She's not from our world. The differences will tear you apart. But Sebastian didn't waver. For once, business wasn't the priority Emma was. The proposal, despite the doubts of others, their love only deepened. They found a rhythm together, splitting time between his glittering penthouse and her cozy apartment above the coffee shop. Elegant dinners balanced with messy picnics in the park. Emma learned to navigate his world without losing herself, and Sebastian discovered the quiet joy of simplicity. 6 months after the wedding where they first met, Sebastian knew with absolute certainty he couldn't imagine life without her. He planned the proposal carefully, choosing the only place that felt right, the little lake cabin where their hearts had first opened. Emma thought it was just another weekend getaway, but when Sebastian led her to the dock, she stopped in awe. Hundreds of twinkling lights glowed all around, their reflection shimmering on the water. White roses lined the wooden planks, their fragrance sweet in the cool evening air. Sebastian took her hands, then dropped to one knee as the sun melted behind the horizon. 6 months ago, he began, his voice thick with emotion. I was sitting alone at a wedding, just going through the motions of my life. Then you walked in, and everything changed. Emma's hands flew to her mouth, tears already streaming. You make me want to be the man I see reflected in your eyes, Sebastian said, voice trembling with sincerity. You make me believe in love, in partnership, in building something beautiful together. He opened a small velvet box, revealing a ring that was stunning yet elegant. Emma, he whispered, will you marry me? Yes, she breathed, then louder, her voice breaking with joy. Yes, of course. Yes, as Sebastian slipped the ring onto her finger, Emma realized fairy tales did come true, not because of magic, but because two people had been brave enough to love each other exactly as they were. The wedding a year later. Emma walked down the aisle of the same chapel where it had all begun. But this time, she wasn't sitting alone at table 7. This time, she was the bride, radiant in a simple, elegant gown, walking toward the man who had seen her when she thought she was invisible. Sebastian waited at the altar, his eyes never leaving her face. Victoria stood proudly as maid of honor, now one of Emma's closest friends. Lily and the staff from Rosewood Flowers filled the front rows, beaming as if she were family. You are my greatest adventure, Sebastian vowed, his voice thick with emotion. My safe harbor and my exciting unknown. You taught me that love isn't about finding someone who fits into your world, it's about creating a new world together. Emma's reply was soft, but every word rang clear through the chapel. You made me believe I was worth noticing, worth loving, worth fighting for. You didn't rescue me from my life. You helped me build the life I always dreamed of. When they kissed as husband and wife, Emma thought of that shy, invisible girl who once sat unnoticed at a wedding reception. That girl had been afraid to take up space, afraid to be seen, afraid to believe she deserved love. But now she knew the truth. Sometimes the most beautiful love stories begin when no one is watching, and end when you finally realize you've been seen all along. Hand in hand, Sebastian and Emma Blackwood stepped out of the chapel, ready to face whatever came next. They had learned that love wasn't about erasing differences, but about celebrating them. That it wasn't about one person saving another, but about two people choosing to build something extraordinary together. And in the end, the girl who thought no one would ever notice her had become impossible to ignore. Not because she had changed who she was, but because she finally believed she was worth seeing. Their story proved one thing above all. Sometimes the most extraordinary romances begin in the most ordinary moments, when two hearts recognize something rare